We will continue with the last section, and that will be sustainable construction and its current trends and opportunities in the Czech Republic.
And we have 3 panelists again. I am happy to welcome Kristina Wojcicka, ECG manager of Wienerberger. Good morning. Please take your seat. Then Mr. David Kuchařík, Project Support Director of Skanska Central Europe. And Mr. Jan Valentin, Sustainability Manager of Hochtief CZ. So please take your seats. And yesterday I researched a bit because construction sector is not anything I would be really familiar with, and I figured out something really horrible. In the Czech Republic, about 4.4 billion tons of cement are produced in the Czech Republic, and it releases as much carbon dioxide as 700 coal using power generation plants. And I think that this really shocked me, and I'm sure that all of those who are sitting here in the panel now are doing whatever they can to make the situation better. Well, yes, you say you're not very familiar with the construction sector, but you actually are right, because construction sector is responsible for a great part of carbon dioxide production globally. Part of it is consumed or associated with heating and electricity or lighting of the premises, and then the rest goes for the construction materials and the construction. And concrete represents some 40% of material used in our constructions, and most of the concrete is cement, really. So this is related especially to the scope 3 and reducing the carbon dioxide footprint, and there are 2 dominant factors there. So if we're discussing civil construction, commercial construction, we can say, or residential construction, we can say that we use about 60% of steel to build these buildings. Can this commodity or this material be replaced at all? Because I know that innovation is great, and I try to read more about the innovative materials, but I think some of the materials cannot really be replaced in the construction. Well, one thing is to replace the material, and the second thing is work with the material further. Of course, you can replace some materials. You can use wooden timber structures. You can have structures that are less carbon dioxide intense, but you can also try to look at the process of the production of cement and composite materials. We know that nowadays there are some composite materials already which are still quite expensive, actually, so this does not make sense from the economical perspective, but there's still more research, more efforts needed in this field, so that we actually get some new materials that the builders will not be afraid to use. In terms of the existing material we have, of course, we can look at the production of cement. Well, the Portland cement we know is most difficult from the perspective of emissions. It generates most emissions. We try to look at different bounding materials that might be more efficient, and we're trying to use other materials that can be mixed into the concrete to reduce the carbon footprint. In Sweden, they're using the so-called biochar. It has neutral carbon footprint, and if it's used in the concrete mix, it actually reduces the carbon footprint of the material. And this is one of the ways, but it's not the only one. I would like to add that there's one more thing, and it actually is related to the mindset change, and we should remember. And it's the life cycle, the lifespan of the material. And this is something that is related to the previous topic, to the topic of the previous panel. And a partial solution is that construction is something that you do not use only for 50 years, but it can actually be used for much longer period, because we know that structures can last for 100 and more years. And it's not just about the carbon footprint, but also about other environmental footprints. So it's also important to look at it from this perspective. But it has already been said that it's really not possible to find 100% replacement for cement and concrete. Even if we use timber, we have to grow the wood somewhere and process it. Yeah, but I cannot really imagine that we would do without concrete at all in the 21st century. But the volume of carbon dioxide emissions is really huge. Yes, so of course there is a research and innovation in terms of low emission cement production. And we as builders will actually be forced to use more efficient materials, cement that generates lower carbon footprint. But then it may be more difficult to produce, and also its properties at the construction site may not be as what we're used to. It may need the material may need more time to mature. We will need to keep the supporting structures at the construction site for a longer period of several months, and then the developers, of course, will have to take this into consideration as well, that the processes may need to change. Yeah, we're not going to discuss the construction law today. Let's just get back to the materials. And I've mentioned the huge carbon footprint of cement, but you're here with us to speak about innovation in the construction sector that you have right now, that you can use right now, that help improve the environment, that may bring more positives and more benefits. So I would like to ask Madam Wobecka to tell us about the plans for the future of Wienerberger Company. So what kind of innovations are you looking at? Thank you. It's we hope that we will keep producing brick. So this is something to start with. I did not know, I was not familiar with a number or with the carbon footprint of cement. We are looking at options of producing more efficient bricks, containing some kind of fillers or walls to make it more energy efficient. And of course, we have to also bear in mind that we want the material to be recyclable. And we're also looking at the options of using recycled material in our products. And this is another huge area for discussion. According to the taxonomy, we should be using up to 30% of this material, like the recycled material, in our products. And we're actually wondering where we will get this material, what will be the source of this material. So this is something that we still have to look at. And we know that there's not enough material from the demolitions. So this is going to be hard to get material actually. And in the previous panel, you discussed the packaging deposit system, and it cannot work like this with the buildings. We have to understand that the lifespan of buildings is really very long. It's over 100 years, and we are selling products that we should be also responsible for in terms of their recycling, but in 100 years we will not be here. So we still have to bear this in mind. Usually when you have a building, it's not taken down, it's renovated, refurbished. But there's really not enough of this second-hand or used material that could be reused in the production. And we have been discussing not only the materials, but Deutsche Börse mentioned how they have to change their mindset in terms of innovation, adopting sustainability approach. How about your industry? And in the Czech Republic, we know that this is a really strong segment. Well, the construction sector is really a huge group or huge area. So we are producer of the construction materials. Then there are developers in the market. Then there are the constructors. And we, as the producers of the building material, we focus on the production. So this is what we focus on. It's our topic. And sustainable construction is something that we are interested in because we want to make sustainable products available, but our focus is different from the focus of our colleagues representing the construction sector. We focus on decarbonization of the processes. Well, of course you wouldn't have to do anything on top. You could just continue doing your business. We know that there are many companies like this, but in your company you started thinking about it. Something happened. So was there some internal need, or is this based on the values of the company? Well, it's based on our values, and also it's the market need, because we sell products that are part or that are used for something that needs credit from a bank. So this is something that's being reviewed, and we are a global company, so we have sustainable goals, sustainability goals, and we are also using the emission allowances, and we know that there will be less and less of them in the future. So we really have to think of how to decarbonize our production process, and the EU legislation is actually putting a lot of pressure on the entire segment and not just the construction segment. How about Skanska? How do you approach innovation? So what is the hot topic right now, and what are your plans? I will link this to the previous question. We see sustainability as one of our fundamental values, and we're trying to be one of the market leaders in this respect, actually, because we see this as something important, not just for the economy, for the construction sector, but for the entire planet. And one of the commitments we have is that we want to be carbon neutral by 2045, and this is linked to the scope 3, and we know that material manufacturers are key for us. And our production of carbon dioxide is just some 25% within scope 3. And of course, this is something that we can tackle better than the carbon footprint of the materials that we need to buy. Until 2030, we want to reduce scope 1 and 2 by 80%, and to reduce or to go down to 50%, including scope 3 in our development projects. Until 2030, we will get closer to achieving these goals by using solutions that are already available. And they can be taken into consideration during design. We can use some renewable materials. We can use more efficient solutions for the use of water, energy, etc. But later on, in the next stage, we will definitely need the innovation. In our company, we actually work on innovation a lot. We work with the academia. We're trying to work on low emission cement, bitumen, and we are trying to work with our suppliers a lot. And this is about learning a lot and about the readiness of the supplier chain to participate in this. And the carbon footprint actually is one thing, and then recycling is another. We have a development project in Prague. It's called Mercury, and it's a unique pilot project. We are taking down a building now, and our intention is to recycle up to 80% of the material. And one of the problems that we have now is that the producers are not able to get the material from us and to use it in manufacturing the new material for us, whether this is glass or plasterboards. So we are trying to these are really quite complicated discussions because we are trying to see where to take this material to be reprocessed. And we're also trying to find partners that could take this material from us and reuse it without without contaminating this material. Thank you. Of the material and mixing the material with something else, which would make it really impossible for us to give it to the producer.
So this is our experience, this is our opinion, and now we have to make pressure on ourselves to search for innovation and to search of ways to combine it with recycling. Yes, but at the same time, this exerts pressure on suppliers, because if the suppliers are not responsible, they not seek sustainable solutions, you don't want to work with them. Yes, of course, that's right. We want to have suppliers with the same vision, but this is the case in any business. If you find a partner with the same vision, it's easier to work for you with such a partner. So this is a natural process to search for this type of cooperation. I'm not sure you agree with me. Well, I agree in many respects, but let me explain. The construction industry is more complex to other types of industry. There may be lots of moments when suppliers in a certain supply chain with different levels. Well, what may happen is that you find a main supplier. However, then they have several or many other individual suppliers, and it will really take time to change the mindset of everybody. And in many occasions you may not always be able to use those suppliers you want. Sometimes when you look at things from the top perspective, things may seem easy. However, as we were saying before, there's a certain type of technology and there are only maybe one or two suppliers of that technology. And if they turn you down, if they say, no, we are not doing it this way, what can you do? You either don't work with them, but then you do not do the project at all, or you have to take what you get. So it's not easy in the construction industry. But it's about educating people and changing their mindset to make them better understand. And I think here we have to do more. We have to explain more. I don't want to offend those people working on the construction sites. However, very often people working in the construction sites do not have very high levels of education. No offense taken. They are very skilled manually, but they do not have this sophisticated mindset. And you just have to be very careful how you present things to them, because some people just say, well, I don't want to do it this way. I'm not coming here tomorrow. You continue. You do it yourself. So in Hochtief, you try to educate your people, to explain things to your people, because it's not always necessary to have the university degree to understand what is really important. Yes, well, we are trying to do what we can, but in the Czech Republic, let me say, sometimes it's more difficult than maybe in Germany. I know what I'm talking about. I can compare the two countries. And it's due to our history and, sometimes even people with higher education say, well, I just want to build things. Why should I care about all this? And we really have to make the extra effort to explain. It's not that we suddenly become green, all of us, overnight, and that's the only way we do our business. We spoke about it with Petr Dovolný from PwC, and we agreed on one thing. It's really about changing the genetic code of our business. It's not that all of a sudden, overnight, we stop thinking about business and we only care about being green. Of course, it's good, it's the right thing to do, but we have to be able to combine these aspects. And only in this way we will be able to move forward to do things differently and better. Yes, I think it's about grasping the concept of sustainability, to keep your business sustainable for future generations. And when you combine it with the environment protection, then you try to ensure that the nature is here even for future generations. That's what sustainability is all about. It's not that you close all your factories overnight and become green, but no, you have to do things in a sustainable way to survive in the current world. And as we've heard that there is now this objective to be climate neutral by 2050, and it's not about zero emissions. There will be always some zero emissions. So we are very much aware of the target. We are not sure how we are going to achieve it yet. We do not have all the necessary technology yet. But the main goal is to survive, to exist in the future. Yes, I agree. The concept of sustainability means that you have to search for ways. Because it's not helpful to do things that lead nowhere. And as you go on your way, as you tackle all these challenges, you realize that, for instance, using the recycled material in the production of bitumen helps you to be more sustainable. And at the same time, you can supply your products cheaper. And then, of course, your investors and your consumers are happier. And there are many examples of this kind. For instance, talking about cement, when you use slightly different ingredients, you become more environmental friendly and you become cheaper. So, in the future, we should try to have more products that will be CO2 neutral or with lower CO2 footprint. It may even happen, as a result of that, that standard materials will be more expensive, and then it will work better. However, to cut the long story short, searching for these solutions can help you generate savings. It's not always the case, because some things are costly, but some things are very cost-effective. So we are trying to search for ways how to keep our economy going. But I don't know, talking about final consumers, talking about residential construction. One of our developers is using this grey water. That's rainwater and some wastewater. And this is very natural thing to do. It's something we can do in our current system. And consumers do not have additional costs when they want to purchase their housing, but it also means lower consumption of water for our final consumers. So then that means we are not wasting drinkable water. We use this grey water where we can. So this is another example of win-win situation for everyone. This is something that doesn't bring higher costs and undermine your business model. Okay, talking about this grey water, I remember a recent debate at the Czech Chamber of Deputies, at the Czech Parliament. Are you in contact with the Czech public administration or with the lawmakers? Are you trying to make them help you? Is there any dialogue between you? Yes. From the point of view of innovation, I think that what is important, talking about the public administration, is important that you have the right data and the right reporting so that you can present it properly and you can convince large manufacturers to supply EPD certificates. You've spoken about cement. However, right now we have no EPD from the Czech manufacturers of cement. On the other hand, in Germany, this is completely normal already. So we are trying to have dialogue with the Czech government, and we are asking why this is not possible in our country, not yet. We've heard that the ministry does not report figures in CO2, but we should lead by example. We should present figures related to CO2, and we should show them the way, how to do it. And maybe then we will motivate them to do things differently. Then another thing I would like to mention is that there are lots of funds available, all kinds of grants or grant projects. We should try to make better use of these. So there are all kinds of possible ways. But talking about CO2, I think standardized reporting and EU taxonomy are very important. Thank you. Now I will give an opportunity to our audience. If there are any questions, feel free to ask them. Pavel Stern? Yes? Well, actually, I have a couple of questions myself. One of them, for instance, is about those automatic robots. But now, Pavel? Yes, I have a question about the public administration. Is there something you need from the public authorities to support, how they should support the construction industry in terms of innovation and sustainability? You have mentioned some things already, but is there something you need more from the public authorities? I'm not sure how to answer, but maybe I should change my seat because in the past I used to work in the academic sector. So let me say the following. The public authorities are struggling a little bit and it's not that flexible. Not many people know that for the past 18 months there is this national strategy for public procurement underway. Because what we build is very often linked to public procurement. And in the past we had some workshops in the expert group, and it took us many hours to explain to people from the ministry that the taxonomy or ESG generally speaking, is very relevant for them, even though there are no specific obligations for them right now. However, if the public administration as a great investor does wrong public procurement, at the end, developers or construction companies can do anything about it. Because if at the very beginning the investor does not put things right, all these green points, then they are simply not there. So it took us some time to explain the whole process to them properly, to explain what they should do. And right now we are searching for ways of including these things in the Czech legislation. Well, if you look at the Czech legislation right now, if you open, for instance, the Public Procurement Act, you will see that in the new Act on Waste, which entered into force at the beginning of 2021, there is this obligation to do responsible procurement. However, what the public authorities started doing is that they shift this responsibility to the contractors. They do not realize that it's up to them, up to the public authorities themselves to search for ways of doing more green procurement, to search for better ways. So we are not able to do public procurement by saying, for example, I want you to use at least 25% of recycled material, and if you use 30% or 40%, you will get a certain bonus for that. But this is something we do not do yet. We don't know how to do it. And at the end of the day, the price is always the main criterion, because it's very straightforward. There's no questioning of the price. Other factors can be put into question. However, the price, it's an obvious fact. And then, yes, I hear what you are saying. You want to have this question about robotic bricklayers, which we will speak about later in a moment. So, another thing that has been discussed for many years and without much progress so far is the use of information modeling, IT modeling, better use of the data we already have from the construction sites. So the state authorities are having endless debates of this issue. However, there are only very, very few construction sites really working with this modeling. And in the context of waste management, it could help you a lot, because if you make a proper model at the very beginning, if you find different clashing moments and problematic moments, then it helps you a lot. And you can avoid certain situations, for instance, having some excessive waste, only because there was not the best solution at the very beginning. So you have to search for these tools and making better use of these tools.
Well, it's a good thing that you're looking for the way how to figure it out faster than the public administration. We're lucky that we have companies here that for 30 years have been trying to do this actually, and set an example to the public administration. And this is what we're trying to do as well. We're trying to organize some fora or meetings, and we invite politicians, but no matter what political party they're representing, it's kind of more difficult for them to take part in the discussions. Let's move forward, though. I know that the technologies are super hot, and since I'm not really familiar with the topic, I did a lot of research yesterday, so I also saw that you can digitally plan your construction, you can save money, resources thanks to this. You also get instantly information about the potential consumption of the building, energy consumption of the building. I mentioned the robotic bricklayers. So the planning of construction is there's a trend. is this the direction in which the Czech construction sector is going. In terms of the digital planning, it's a strategic area for us. And it's actually the future of construction for me. And this area can be split into several categories. One category may be the specific digital tools or instruments that you can use directly at the construction site, whether these are some robotic instruments. So far, they are not efficient enough to replace human work, unlike automotive industry, for example. So we still need the people. And the robotic instruments are not sophisticated enough yet to be more efficient than people. And we know that right now the efficiency is low, even with the humans there. But the technologies are important. They help us a lot. They're changing the market. And we have a department in our company that has drones. We have a fleet of drones, and we use the drones a lot, especially in building engineering constructions. We use a lot. We use the drones to take pictures. We use the data for calculating the volumes of material. We can get the data to avoid possible collisions of materials. So the data is there, and it's very helpful for us when we work on the design of a contract, as well as during implementation of a contract. And in the future, of course, we will try to remove the manual work in some areas, the paperwork in some areas, and we are trying to see how to use artificial intelligence in our work. And this is another area of working with the data and using the data. And it's becoming part of our everyday work. So this is a really wide area. So we can think of some futuristic machine, then there are also already some instruments that we can use today, and of course in the future there'll be a lot of digitization even in construction. Well, in the Czech Republic, we have this debate concerning the robots and what will the people do once they're replaced by robots. It's kind of set in here, the way how people approach it. But then when we get the right answer, you may actually have some persuasive arguments for us to start understanding that a robot may be a key innovation. We have the robot, we have the robotic instrument, the robotic bricklayer, and you could actually see it in our company. We're using it at the construction sites, but it's been said that it's still limited. So it can lay bricks only up to a certain height. It can only build around its base in the location where we put it. Of course, you have to take it to the location somehow. So there are still some limitations, but it's an innovation. And of course, each innovation has some development. We see that in the future there'll be lack of labor in the labor market. This is something that construction companies are really struggling with. So we will need robots to build at least a part of the structure, but we will need someone to control the robot. So we will need more skilled labor force, people who will be able to control the robots. So they will be, the bricklayers will be eventually replaced by engineers. So this will, of course, change the structure of human resources at the construction sites as well. And speaking about sustainability, we have to make sure that our human resources are sustainable as well. I do not know what the bricklayers will do then. Well, I don't really worry about this so much because we do not have many people, enough people to work at the construction sites, and we see how many graduates of vocational schools are really leaving vocational schools every year, and how many of them stay in the trade. So not many in the Czech Republic. So there's this labor shortage problem in the market, and the automation may actually help us replace the lacking labor, improve quality, and improve safety as well, especially in if some tasks are really risky for people. Well, I've just recalled this iconic photograph from the skyscraper construction in New York, when there are those guys sitting on a beam very high above the ground. So we will not see many more pictures like this in the future, I guess. So it will be more about automation, better planning, digitization. Well, we as a producer of material, we have really adopted the automation a lot, and we see that we have less workers per shift now, but we still do not have enough people to work for us because there's shortage of people in the labor market. So the question or the argument that people will be losing job, it's not really valid, because we already see this happening, and not to the detriment of the workers. I think that really the strongest development or the strongest trend is not really very visible at the construction side right now. It's more on the planning side, whether it is modeling, remotely controlled machines, 3D modeling, printing. So this is something that you will not see at the construction site yet, but the preparation of the construction is really digitally supported nowadays, and it's a common thing already, but then you cannot really see it at the construction site. Would you point out any of the innovations that you're really proud of? Well, there are many of them, just random examples. In the previous blockchain was mentioned, and this is something that we use throughout the entire production cycle of concrete, from the initial order, then definition or the formula selection and all the other steps, because you need to make sure that you have the right material, the right concrete delivered to a particular construction site at the right moment. And when it's a large development project, then it's very complex to manage the works there. So you may have concrete mixture car coming, bringing the concrete to the construction site. They come to the right construction site, but before they manage to figure out where exactly at the construction site this is to be used, they have to go back to the factory or manufacturing plant, because the concrete is too mature or too hard to be used at the construction site. And we have some other innovations that we're using, not in the Czech Republic, but in other countries. And this concerns really tools for drafting contracts and searching contracts, because we know the contracts are really very long, so we may offer some tools to the lawyers to be able to find information faster. And last year we tested an innovation together with the airport Prague, and we tested machine learning in terms of analyzing or diagnosing some problems that may occur on the surfaces at the airport. So is this just a crack? Is this just a piece of material that's been chipped? So we have some technologies that we can use to analyze this that actually make it possible for us to monitor trends if we have enough information. So there are some tools that make our life easier. We are not using too many robots yet. I know that colleagues in the tunnel construction department were using robots to help them detect some cracks in the tunnels, and there are some smaller robots or robotic instruments that we use for diagnostics, for example. And even in the Czech Republic, there were some projects. We were not part of them, but the Czech Technical University was working or was developing robots that were linked to drones, and they were intended for areas that were difficult or impossible to access. So then you can use the drone to take photographs or get some visual coverage, and based on the data collected with the use of the drone, you can perform analysis. So there's really a huge array of tools and instruments that can be used. And of course, with when you're teaching students, it's very often very popular to show them how augmented reality can be used. And at the Czech Technical University, we're now working on because the demolitions were mentioned here, but in the future we would like to take the buildings down. So in the future you should be able to use the augmented reality goggles and to check the different materials, to include them in the models, to try to measure or figure out what is the thickness of the material in particular areas. And this is something that can really make life for the engineer easier, and you can also get more precise, more accurate information about the construction site. And we're talking about huge volumes of material here. So if you get the relevant data, it's really good, and this will be data that will be stored somewhere in the system. So if you start working at the same construction site, or this, when you need to do something in the building, 30 years later, you can go back to the initial information about the construction and analyze the data, and you will know what kind of materials you have there to deal with. Are there any more questions for our panelists? You mentioned several principles concerning the low-emission buildings. You mentioned digitalization. You mentioned low-emission materials. But there are some other things that we haven't mentioned yet. And I wonder if you have some discussions about this, like adapting the building to suit a particular purpose or extending the lifespan of structures. You mentioned the controlled demolition, so taking down the building. So is it possible to reuse the bricks, or do you have to crush them to make new material from the bricks? So I'm wondering about the modularity there in there.
Yes, thank you. Yes, it would be really nice if you could dismantle the whole building and to reuse it brick by brick. However, that's not possible at the moment. We do not have the necessary technology. It's difficult even to get a targeted recycled material, because think about the structure of the building. You have a brick, but then you have lots of things attached to a brick. You have the mortar, you have all these other materials. So the brick you are removing is not the same brick we are manufacturing right now, even though the initial ingredient, the initial raw material is the same. Yes, let me add something. We are more or less of a similar age, and I remember the 1980s when I was 6 or 7 years old. And what other fathers used to do, they were dismantling or removing material from some demolitions, taking it a brick by brick, and maybe then trying to build a garage from those bricks. However, right now, you have nude material. You have these special porotherm bricks that you attach to one another, and it's difficult even to disconnect them. So it's not that dismantling is very easy, because it's not. And the question is whether for the future types of constructions or buildings we will be able to do something like that. Yes, modularity is a big topic, but sometimes I'm almost have to smile when I hear people in the Western Europe suddenly discovering modules and prefabricated materials. Now we in Central and Eastern Europe have these large estates made of panel blocks, but in other parts of Europe they seem to rediscover this as a whole new world. And yes, I agree that modular buildings are discussed a lot these days, and solutions are searched for how to adapt buildings during their lifetime to postpone the moment of demolition as much as we can. Because it's not a good idea to destroy a building just because it's no longer fit for its initial purpose. So, of course, it would be easier just to dismantle it or remodulate the building to use different modules. But I believe we are still very much at an early stage of remodulation of the construction industry. We have to search for possible ways in the future. After all, when you look at the largest housing estate in Prague, the southern city, Jižní Město, yes, of course you could dismantle it, but I don't think you would want to reuse those panels, because those panels, they already degraded over the time, and the connecting points are no longer fit. So there are lots of question marks. Yes, it may seem to be nice that, okay, we could do it, but ask me in 50 years. I don't think I will be around to ask you this question, but maybe in the future, AI, who will moderate these conferences. I've seen some examples of AI doing different jobs, even composing the music, so lots of professions may be out of their existence. So I believe this may be probably the moment to thank you very much, unless there are some other questions, because we are slowly running out of time. So thank you. Thank you very much for your interesting contributions, for being a part of this panel. Thank you, David Kuchařík, Kristýna Vobecká, and Jan Valentin.